Today on episode 101 of Rail Talk, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the past weekend at Saratoga and look forward to this weekend's races as well. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And John, we're getting a lot of buzz from that 100th episode last week, so much so that Travis and Jason Kelsey had to pull the desperation maneuver and bring Taylor on this week to compete with us.
You know, it doesn't surprise me, Joe, because we are the exact, upper echelon of this industry when it comes to podcasting. I've heard that time and time again. Thankfully, we'll be up at Saratoga again to receive the proper accolades that we deserve. Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. And Joe, I can't believe we're on the other side of 100 shows.
The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and Jon Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. Shout out to Mark Taylor for stopping by the set last week. Great conversation with him. And, as we mentioned, we're enamored with the Stallion roster, and the Not This Times are just every single sale. They show up and they show out. As I mentioned, West Point got a filly from the Select sale, and then John and I and West Point and DJ partnered on the Not This Time colt coming out of the New York bred sale. His horses, just like I said, they can do anything, and they any level of the market, they're going to be attractive, John.
Right. And Joe, did you see Hot Mash win at Ellis Park the past? Actually, it was just on Monday. So Hot Mash is the Not This Time 2-year-old filly that John Service trains.
Nice.
That went out 20-1, 42-3. And I even texted John. I'm like, that can't be right. Like, those numbers can't be right. But nay, they were correct. And again, a Not This Time filly that can run sprinting on the turf, and they're going to try to elongate her and see if she can run in the maybe the untappable, or maybe even like the Grade 1 when you're up in Canada. Who knows? But the sky's the limit for Not This Times. And it's not just Not This Time, Joe. It's also Knicks Go, Instagram. I mean, they have horses that are showing up and winning races all over the freaking place.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned earlier the curated reduction you guys are doing through TaylorMade. They obviously are great at bringing horses to market too. The leading consignor at pretty much every major yearling sale. So if you got a horse to breed, or you got a horse to sell, or you want to get into a race, TaylorMade should be your first stop at TaylorMadeFarm.com. So, I mean, a lot of weeks we come on here and we're like, well, there's no way racing can make itself look even sillier than it did in the previous mess. And yet, lo and behold, time and time again, racing manages to make itself look like even less of a serious sport. And it's even more magnified when it happens at Saratoga. So this past weekend on Saturday, in the 12th race of the day, I'm sure you've heard by now, but the gate was placed at the wrong starting position. The race was supposed to be 1 1/8 on the inner turf, and they ended up running it at 1 1/16. And this is like, you imagine the Olympics, and it was a 100-meter dash, and then they run the race, and then the announcers come on and they're like, oh shit, that was 150 meters. What do we do? Well, we can't do anything about it now. It's already in the record books. We can't rerun the race or anything like that. And this was just like so inexcusable to happen once. But, John, this has happened multiple times. This happened last May when they had the 2-year-old race that was supposed to be running 5.5 furlongs and was run at 5 furlongs. It happened in 2018 before that. A couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, they had horses break out of the wrong gate at Saratoga. They juxtaposed the gates incorrectly. And it's maddening, John, because we come on here every single week trying to be advocates for the sport, and so many other people are on television and writing articles and promoting the game and marketing the game, and the people in charge of running the races can't even be bothered to get the fucking distance of the race correct. Like, it just makes you feel like, why am I banging my head against the wall trying to do better for this game when the people who actually are in charge, are at the levers, could not care less, it seems. And, ultimately this falls to the stewards. They are the last line of defense for this kind of thing. And the 3 stewards have a lot to answer for. Like, they put out, Andy Serling put out a video with them the other day where they had like a pat, like 20-second explanation. And I thought that was way, inadequate. I think, I think that there should be like a press conference or a live Q&A or something, not 2 guys or 3 guys reading a statement that really, like, the apology, such as it was pretty weak. And I don't know, Jon, like how many other sports would you find where there's just this kind of unacceptable incompetence happens on a regular basis?
Joe, I'm torn, and I'm torn between saying, believe it or not, the fact that they had a quote unquote kind of press conference and read a statement and apologized is an advance for our industry. Okay, it's a huge step forward for us as far as what's transparent, but for wagering, for a sport that we wager on and that people put money into, and that is a quote unquote serious sport. You can't have these what I would call one-off mistakes that are happening too often. There's got to be some kind of quality control involved. And I know that, they say, well, there's the state stewards and there's a gate crew and there's the handlers of the horses that are back there. Somebody should have been like, guys, I think we're off a little bit. And it wasn't like it was 5 feet where you'd say, all right, you know what? Maybe there was like a divot in the track and they didn't want the tractor to go over it. So they moved it a little bit, but they angled it to account for, I mean, there's all kinds of calculations that can go on. If it's a couple feet either way, nobody was, but this is egregious as far as I'm concerned with the distance. Now, I think the bigger question, Joe, is how do we fix this issue? And if the stewards are accountable, who's kind of monitoring the monitors, to take a page out of the very famous Will Smith movie that I can't remember the name of at this moment. But basically, it's like, all right, if these guys are in charge, then who's double checking to make sure that things that you think would be so straightforward and simple, like, oh, let's make sure that the horses go in the right starting gate, the right stalls in the starting gate, I should say. Or let's make sure that all the horses are standing firm before they open the latch. Or, oh, I don't know, maybe we should make sure that the starting gate itself is in the right place. Like, these are all things that I think would be natural duties over the course of every single race, and should be should have some kind of a system in place, again, for quality control. Because you notice, Joe, that the corgi races were run at the right distance.
Yeah. Did they use G-Max for that, or were they hand timing that race?
I don't know. All I know is there was a great meme that I saw where it was the mother holding the adorned child in the swimming pool, and it said corgi races, and then like the kid who's drowning was like racing basically, and then of course the dead skeleton on the bottom of the pool was, of course, as always, the betters, because they always get shafted in the end. I don't know if you can't refund the money. You can't. It's not dissimilar in that sense to like when a horse is DQ'd out of a race for a drug test, for a drug positive or an overage, and then you say, well, everyone should have their money back. You can't. There's no way you can do that. I mean, that's they couldn't do that for the Derby. They're not doing that for the for an undercard race at Saratoga. But Bill Finley wrote a great article, I thought, a great op-ed basically in Sunday's TDN about who holds the stewards accountable. And I actually texted Bill and said, I really liked what you had to write in your op-ed piece, because he was pretty strong. He was like, hey, the New York Gaming Commissioners, the stewards at Saratoga, particularly the one in charge, Baeza Jr., rules with an iron fist and basically is draconian in the exact words, from Bill, because I don't know what draconian meant before I looked it up, but draconian in doling out his fines and basically kind of like at his own discretion. So, I encourage everyone to read it and come to their own conclusion. But yeah, Joe, this was a big kerfuffle.
Yeah, and and I agree with Bill that like at least the other two, because Baeza was not on that video with Andy Serling. At least the other two guys had the guts to sit there and show their faces. Like, yeah, I think it should have been longer and a little bit more detailed than what they did. But at least they showed up and actually said something. Baeza was nowhere to be found, and he's the New York State Gaming Commission steward,
right?
And the Gaming Commission is. I think is kind of absent a lot of times when it comes to these rulings. And so that tracks. And, Bill made a good point that like all these other like minor, tiny infractions and mistakes, he fines them the maximum amount of money, like Gary Contessa, the clocker, like these guys that are just doing their job. And a lot of times, in the Gary Contessa case, there was like the new rule hadn't been posted to the website yet. And he was just supposed to know it in terms of running a horse out of town after 30 days. And it's like, it's such hypocrisy and such incompetence. And the thing that was stunning to me was like, it's not just the stewards. Like, yes, they have the ultimate responsibility. How many people were involved in the running of this race?
That's what I'm saying.
And none of them were like, like none of the jockeys, none of the outriders, none of the train, like nobody that was involved in the running of this race thought to say, I don't think the gate position seems right. And I get it, like it's the 12th race, the end of a long day, but like this is the one thing. And they said, and they were not like very clear about what they're going to be doing to make sure this doesn't happen. But I would assume now it's going to be like someone from the gate crew calls up to the steward's booth with like 3 minutes to post, confirms the distance and the surface, which why the fuck wasn't that happening this whole time to have multiple layers of confirmation before you run a race? I just like, I hate being staggered by the incompetence of this industry. And especially like we said, at the premier meet of the entire country, like this is the most popular, most well-attended meet that we have in America. And stuff like this happens seemingly on a regular basis. And I don't know, man, like yeah, you're right. You can't give the money back, but got to do something, man. You got to like seed a pick 5 pool or a pick 6 pool or something like that. Give people rebates on Naira bets or something like 10 times rebates. Like you got to do something better than get up there and give a half-assed apology, especially when this is not the first time this happened. Like in the last 15 calendar months, this has happened twice. It shouldn't happen ever. Like maybe once a century this should happen. It's happened twice in 15 months, Johnny. You got to do better than just say, oops, our bad.
Yeah, and again, I think that it is a step forward for the industry. The fact that they actually came on, and even if it was to a limited group of journalists, and at least read a statement and say, hey, we screwed up, because a lot of times in the past that wasn't even the case. It was just like swept under the rug and like nothing to see here. Joe, there's we run a lot in Woodbine, and I mentioned to Mark Cassie a couple of years ago, I was like, how come when they're going into the gate, one of the gate crew yells, last one, when the last one's going, and he said, well, because a couple of years prior to that, a race went off and there was a horse that was still behind the gate, and the race actually went off and people got all up in arms. Well, in Canada, when shit like that happens, you know what they did? They fixed the problem. They actually they put in a condition. You can't foresee all of the issues that are going to occur, but to make sure that the gate crew and the starter knows that there's one horse left or that this is the last one to go in, they actually have the gate crew yell last one. So that way everybody knows, including the fans that are watching at home, okay, I better sit up and take notice because this is the last horse is going to the gate. That's one thing. But to be a 16th of a mile difference in a race, that's huge. That's half a furlong, Joe. If a horse won by half a furlong, we'd be calling him Secretariat, for God's sake.
Well, and like you look at if you watch how the race unfolded, the 10 Charles J was coming.
Yeah.
And he was like, at the very least, he was going to get up for second if that race was a mile and eighth. He galloped out past the winner, so you could argue that he was going to win the race. So imagine you were like live single to the 10 in the pick 6, or the pick 5, or had $1,000 to win on him or something. You straight up got your money robbed from you. And that's not even talking about the trainer like Joseph Lee, who does not have a lot of horses, and he does a good job with the minimal amount of horses that he has. But this is like, how many other chances is he going to have to win a Saratoga maiden special weight this summer? This is probably one of the very few chances, and he had that ripped away from him. And I don't know, it's just like there should be some kind of recourse for the bettors and for the connections of the horse that this happened, because, as you mentioned, this isn't a minor screw up. Like, it's one thing, like, and we can talk about this too, like, Zulu Kingdom DQ like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. Yeah. That was a joke.
Ridiculous.
That was a joke. And that helped me because I liked the two in that race. But that was embarrassing. Like, there was no way you could reasonably argue that he was the one that caused the interference in that race. But at least in that case, That's a judgment call.
Right.
And you can disagree all you want with the judgment call. And I do. And I think the vast majority of people do. But it's not as if they ran the race at the wrong distance.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not as if they ran that race at 1.5 miles instead of a mile. Like, you at least can disagree with the judgment call all you want, but it's, at least the parameters of the race were correct. And that's the bare minimum that we should expect from the stewards. And, Bill's question is correct. Like, what happens? What possible like blowback could there be to find new stewards?
Right.
Because these things have happened way, 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 way too often. And it's just, apologize, turn the page, and hope we don't screw it up next time. That seems to be the protocol right now. But, like I was saying, I hope that they have much, much better processes in place to make sure this never happens again, because it's already happened way too many times. And again, like, this is what's so frustrating. It's like, when we can't even get the basic running of the race correct, what chance do we ever have to compete with some of the other sports out there where this would never happen in a million years? We're up shit's creek without a paddle if we can't even do this right. Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance, including property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. Our buddy Chris Moore leads Epic's equine specialty practice. You see him all over the place. He's got horses himself. He's at pretty much every sale. He's at the races. He lives and breathes this game, and that's who you want in charge of your insurance policies. You'll see him at Saratoga as well. Give him a shout. Give him a call. It's at 317-650-4519. Yearling season is here. This is equine insurance renewal season. If you buy yearlings and your insurance policy doesn't renew between July 1st and October 31st, you're leaving money on the table. Chris guarantees he'll bring you value. If he doesn't, he'll donate to an aftercare organization of your choosing in your honor. But I guarantee, I'll back up his guarantee that he's going to find you value. We wouldn't let him be a sponsor on this show if he didn't, if he wasn't for real. And Chris is for real, and so is the team at Epic Insurance Brokers. They're the tops in this business, and it's a vital service that they provide for these super valuable assets. So give them a shout and start that conversation. And that leads us to this week's
Epic Performance of the Week.
Good to know that the booming voiceover guy has returned home to my ceiling. That's all is well with the world again. Didn't expect him to follow us to Saratoga, but he did. That's how dedicated he is to this bit. This week's Epic Performance of the Week is Doncho, who set a new world record on going 5.5 furlongs on the turf at Ellis Park. Doncho was a horse that I really, really liked when he was first coming on the scene as a 3-year-old, I believe, on the dirt at Fairgrounds. His form kind of tailed off, including the last couple of races, but he refound his top form, went wire to wire. When John texted me this, I was like, oh my God, I love this horse. How much did he pay? And he paid $24.70 to win, of course. So I was like, he had long gone off of my radar. But if I had just so happened to be watching Ellis that day, I would have put a couple of bucks on him. But yeah, 59.75, the new world record. It lowered the world record set by Cogburn in last year's Jaipur up at Saratoga, which was 59.80. And, that turf course at Ellis is burnt to a crisp. Like, all these horses are running crazy times. But obviously you have to have a fast turf course to set a record. And, a world record is a world record, trained by Michelle Lovell, owned by JAL Racing. They persevered with him. He's now a 5-year-old, he's 4 years old now. And kept on despite him not having the greatest form this year and last year. Glad he finally found his footing on the Ellis turf. And yeah, you run under a minute in going 5.5 furlongs. I don't care how fast the turf course is. Right. You are really motoring 1 by 3 and 3 3/4 lengths. Doncho setting a new world record. That's all it takes. All you got to do is set a world record, and then you can become the Epic Performance of the Week. So shout out to Doncho. I'm sure he's going to be in one of those Kentucky Downs stakes races going forward. Michelle Lovell, obviously a smaller trainer, so we like to see some of the smaller barns come up with big-time horses as well. So congrats to the connections to Doncho, this week's Epic Performance of the Week. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig Tipton. Honestly, the Fasig Tipton sales from this past week sell themselves. But if you weren't paying attention, if you were under a rock, record record results at not only the select sale, but the New York bred sale. $25 million yearlings at the select sale, $100 million of gross for the first time in the considerable history of the facing sale. Records fell across the board. Jon and I mentioned it earlier about all the money that's flooding into this business right now. And, those yearlings are, if you are going to go big, this is the time to do it with those yearlings and how good they look and the pedigrees that they have. West Point bought 4 $1.8 million colt by Flightline was the kind of the headliner. We got a $1.1 million filly by Flightline as well, and a Twirling Candy colt and a Not This Time filly. Jon, what did you guys end up doing at the select sale?
We ended up buying a couple. We had we got shut out a hell of a lot more times than we got our hand up even. But we got a Vacoma and Justify filly, and then should we announce the new partnership horse, Joe? In the
so I was going to talk about it when I was going to mention the New York bred sale, which was also a record breaking sale. The topper was $525,000, but the average I believe was over $115,000 or $120,000
Yep.
was the average. $120,303 to be exact. Big jump from last year's average of just under $105,000. The previous record was 107. So it just blew
like 15%.
away.
Yeah, 15%.
Blew away the previous record. And, I love to see that with the New York breds. But Jon, you can mention our newest partnership from that sale.
Yeah, we bought a beautiful Not This Time colt out of the very illustrious mare Spacey Tracy, where we can show the pedigree. And I think it's like 5 different siblings are black type horses. You almost don't even get to the second dam. That's how long and prestigious this family is. Spacey Tracy, of course, being a black type earner, daughter of Awesome Again. You don't see too many Awesome Again mares out there either. And originally, Joe, we bought the horse. And I know we were talking to you guys about possibly, getting involved in the horse Not This Time colt for $375,000. And to my surprise, although it shouldn't be surprised, not only did you say yes, but I think you guys sold out and then asked for more of the horse later on.
Right.
That's how popular this Not This Time colt is.
Yeah, no, we were originally going to take a third, and the third sold out in literally like 10 minutes. So I texted Jon. It was like, how high are you willing to go? So we ended up being 50-50 partners, similar to what we did with Ewing. And yeah, she's a terrific mare, graded stakes winner in her own right, but has multiple graded stakes winners in her progeny. And one of the stakes horses is ours, Ohana Honor, who's a grade 1 place turf horse for us, who's winding back up. You got the winner in the spring off. He's winding back up to come back to the races in the fall. And, not that this necessarily matters, but he's the most beautiful horse in the barn. We got over 140 horses. He is just drop dead gorgeous. If you've ever seen a picture of him, he's incredible to look at. And this colt is beautiful too. And by Not This Time, obviously you got the sire power there as well. So we're super, super excited. And I think I could break this news on the show that we already have a name for him. So he is by Not This Time out of Spacey Tracy. So shout out to Aaron Birkenhauer, our COO at West Point, who came up with the name Chapman, because we're all big Tracy Chapman fans. Obviously, you got the Tracy from the Dam. She had a song from her second album named This Time. So it just was a perfect idea from her. It got approved. So we're going to put that name on him. And yeah, maybe that'll get if he becomes a nice horse, that'll convince Tracy Chapman to come out of retirement, come do a little performance at Saratoga one day.
Yeah, we have a track history, no pun intended, of musicians coming out and backing our partnership horses, which is really cool. And Joe, just to put a bow on it, so you guys have Ohana Honor from that family. We have Sputnik from that family, who's a daughter of Uncle Mo, who unfortunately had a career-ending injury. But we were able to breed her to Curlin, and she's going to be one of the mares in our reduction sale in November. So just, all signs pointed to us partnering up and buying now named Chapman.
Yeah, and we're super high on him, and it was $375 is a lot for a New York bred, but considering the Bafo sales results that we saw from the select sale and the New York bred sale, it felt like decent value. So I just want to give a major hat tip to everybody at FASIC. It's a lot of work to put on those sales, especially the select sale. You got the digital sales coming up as well, but I just feel like everybody can take a little bit of a breath now after the Saratoga sales. So well done to everybody at FASIC, and congratulations on the record numbers that we saw coming out of it. All right, so we spent the last segment eviscerating Naira and the people in charge with good reason. I do want to give a tip of the hat to them for renaming the sword dancer to honor the late, great Christophe Clement. They ran the sword dancer over the weekend on Saturday. Charlie Appleby, who was on a freaking milk carton for like the last 12 months, shipped in and won the race with El Cordobés. Really great ride by Flavien Prat, by the way. He won that race for that horse, when I don't say that often. But yes, so Christophe won the sword dancer many times, and this was his domain pretty much, was that marathon 1.5-mile turf horse. This is where he made his bones in the industry. He obviously has won a bunch of other great races too, like the Belmont, but this is like where his bread was really buttered. And yeah, I just think it makes a lot of sense, and it's a great gesture to honor him and the Clement family. And yeah, I was wondering like when that was going to happen and what race. And that's perfect. That Saratoga is the centerpiece turf race for the entire meet, John. So yeah, I think that's a fitting tribute to Christophe.
It is, and again, tip of the cap to them for recognizing it and doing it so quickly. Where they must have had it in their plans soon after Christophe passed, because that was a major shift, and they wanted to make the announcement on Sword Dancer Day. So it definitely, it fit in appropriately. Of course, we were all rooting for Team Clement to win the race this year, but I think maybe if they have a chance to win it next year, when it's actually named, after the patriarch, then it's even more befitting of the honor that it is. But I thought that was great. I appreciate that they extended it, and again, it was no offense to the horse that the race was named after previously, but a lot of people don't remember his career and don't remember that. And this is a little bit more contemporary that Christophe is going to be recognized, and hopefully the race will go on for another, 40 or 50 years, in the future and honor his legacy.
Yeah, no, it's a great legacy, and Miguel's obviously upholding it, doing great work so far with the horses that he's put out there. Christophe won the sword dancer 5 times. His record fifth sword dancer victory was last year with Farbridge, who obviously ran on Saturday as well. So yeah, looking forward to the Christophe Clement Invitational next summer at Saratoga. Also looking forward to this Saturday because we have a deep connection with one of the contenders in the Alabama, another one of those great historic Grade 1s up at Saratoga. And it's a competitive race. There's no real standout in here. It's only drew 6 horses, which is surprising to me for a $600,000 legendary 1.25-mile Grade 1 for the fillies. But to me, and this isn't just because I know John and love John, to me, the most interesting horse in the race is Nitrogen. Just because, she obviously has had immense success on turf. She did have that huge win in the Wonder again off the grass, but it was a 3-horse field, and, it was kind of like a public workout for her. She came back, just missed in the Belmont Oaks by a nose. This would have been worth it, like no matter who showed up. But considering the field, John, this is a really, really good chance to make her even immensely more valuable. You can win a Grade 1 on dirt.
Well, I think the reason why you have 6 horses in here is because of the 10 furlongs. It's a distance that a lot of 3-year-old fillies have not competed at, and nor will they ever again, unless they go to the distaff. But that being said, there's 2 really solid, salty contenders in here, with Good Cheer, who won her first 7 races of her life before not handling the slop in the Acorn, and then the horse that beat her, Lucara, who now has, Joe, not 1 but 2 Grade 1 wins under her belt, and looks to be the only real speed in the race. So I think the race is going to start and finish and go through Lucara, and it's just a question of whether or not she can go out there and if Dylan Davis, her usual rider, can slow the pace down, because if you can slow it down to 48, 49, and maybe 113 for 6 furlongs, then it's just a sprint at that point. It's just a 4 furlong sprint, and even though we own Nitrogen, my money would be on Lucara at that point. If she's 2 or 3 up in front, going into the turn at the top of the stretch, I think it's game over at that point. But Nitrogen, the reason why we're trying her, and Joe, this is the funny part about the industry. Okay. So Nitrogen, we're trying her on the dirt, and people are like, yes, that's great. we're all behind you. That's so super. You're given a chance to see if she can add a new dimension to her illustrious, resume and all those wonderful things. And we appreciate it. That's not why we're doing it, but we appreciate, the encouragement and everything like that. And then you go to Sandman and people are like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Now you're throwing him in the turf race. And, and it's like, it's basically the same premise. It's like, hey, we want to see if the horse can take the next step on a different distance and see what we can do. It's not exactly apples to apples because obviously with Nitrogen, it's a matter of, hey, we want to see if we can get, a grade 1, on the dirt because that'll make her worth more from a breeding standpoint. And with Sandman,
she's in much better form than Sandman.
She does. But there aren't a lot of horses that have as good a form as a Nitrogen, but I think a lot of people, I think when horses are turning 3, especially in the Marcassi barn, where they really get focused on one kind of racetrack or the other. Either it's Tapeta or it's turf or it's dirt, and you kind of get in a rut in there when you succeed on that surface. But now we're trying it, with Nitrogen. We'll see if she can get the grade 1. I think the 10 panels is not going to be a problem for her. I think that she can kind of sit off it. And hopefully, like I said, somebody else is going to go with Lacara. Although, Joe, I keep looking at the form, looking to see if anyone else can go 46.
Loose as could be in there, man. Unless you guys put pressure on her, which obviously is probably not going to happen with 2 Cassie horses. Right. Like, I don't know who's going to run with her. The only thing I'll say is that that was a very speed favoring track that she won on in the Acorn.
Yes.
Nobody really closed in there. So, I thought, and I was against Good Cheer in the Oaks. I was against Good Cheer that day too. Finally, I stopped losing money betting against her after all these years. It feels like. But yeah, once Lacara got loose on that track, I thought she was going to be very tough to catch, and she was. Where's Scottish Lassie? I don't know. Maybe you heard something I didn't, because she came back and flattered Lacara in that huge blowout win in the CCA Oaks.
Right. I have not heard. To be honest with you, once a horse announces that they're not going to be in the race, I'm like, whew, because she's got some salted credentials also. But I'm sure we'll be seeing her again in the very near future.
Yeah, my guess is maybe they'll go to the Cotillion or something. But I was expecting after that huge win that she would be back in the Alabama.
Yeah, we'll be seeing her again in the entries, against us hopefully in the very near future. But Joe, this is like a pivotal race for Nitrogen, because if she does well, then it's like, okay, well, I guess we're on the path to the distaff. If she doesn't run the way that we want, then we're going to have to pivot and probably see if she can handle, some of the world's best turf horses. Believe it or not, and I know it's going to sound funny to say it, but I think that the dirt division is an easier division right now than the turf division. And that's before you get all these Euros coming over.
Yeah. Well, how about that we have a horse coming in from Sweden in this race?
I've never seen that before.
Like, how far and wide did they have to search to find this horse to run in here? Now, it is Team Valor. Barry Irwin likes to ship his horses all over the world and bring horses in from Europe. But I had never seen that before. This horse ran, I'm going to try this, John. This horse ran in the Jockey Kluben Svensk Derby last time against the boys.
Right.
And it says here in the form, it's a maiden race, but it was for 235,400 Swedish kroners. I don't know what the currency is.
I don't know how it could have been a maiden race when
I don't know. It just says maiden. Races. So yeah, I don't know. It must mean something overseas. All of our European listeners are going to yell at me about my ignorance on Swedish racing, I'm sure. But yeah, that's that.
I just like hearing you say Jockey Kluben.
Jockey Kluben. Yeah, I like that.
Jockey Kluben Svensson Derby.
Mike Rapoli, once you're done yelling at the Jockey Club, call up the Jockey Kluben and see if they're doing their job.
You might be the commissioner of the Jockey Kluben.
Oh, John with his Swedish chef impression. We finally got back to it. I feel like we had this. You brought it up out of nowhere once upon a time, and then here we are setting you up for your Swedish chef impression.
Out of the park. Out of the parky.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. Len and DJ own over 200 horses. They have a few fewer after the November sale, and you got to know that those horses that are coming to that sale are sound, well-bred, and in the case where they're racing prospects, ready to go. So we're looking forward to that. DJ Stables won over 2,600 races. Excited to partner with them on the new yearling, as I mentioned, from the New York bred sale. And the Green Group's got close to 1,000 clients in the horse business because they make them money and save them taxes. As always, there's a special offer for listeners of Rail Talk. Exclusive. Len is offering a complimentary confidential half-hour consultation guaranteeing he'll find you value. Call him up at, what's that number? Michael Agresta.
732-634-5100.
Thank you, sir. Or go to greencode.com. Do it soon. If you filed an extension for the October tax deadline, time's running out. You want to get with the Green Group and get the most benefit possible for your return. Len, as I said, guarantees that he'll find you value. He'll donate to your favorite charity, whatever you want. He knows because he's done it with many other industry participants, and he'll do it with you. But you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to yet another satisfied customer, the man, the myth, the legend, Barry Doc Eiseman.
Len Green, as the commander of the ship, is an exceptionally talented guy. You know, he understands the taxes inside and out. He understands ways to maximize your tax deductions that are still within the realm of, possibility, legality. He does a great job. He knows horses, he knows taxes, he's a good man, he's a good person. Highest recommendation that I could give goes to him. He understands the racehorse industry, he understands the horse business, and he understands how to integrate that into the tax code. And there's very few people that have his width and depth of knowledge on these subjects. I strongly recommend the Green Group to anybody, especially in the horse business, that's interested in maximizing their tax situation.
Thank you, Doc. We love Doc. All the West Point horses, all the yearlings that we bought from this sale are heading down to Doc's farm. He does an unbelievable job with our babies, and he's great in terms of letting people visit. Don't call him up because I said that. But if you do own a horse and you want to go check him out and watch him on the track, he's awesome about that. He has a great team, and I'm so glad that he and Len and the Green Group have gotten together because some of the best people in the business who do things the right way. So shout out to Barry Eiseman. Shout out to the Green Group. Call him up at 732-634-5100 or go to greenco.com. Okay, so Jon's going to break a little bit of news on this week's episode. So Jon and Len obviously have a vast network of horses, over 200 horses. And it sounds like you guys are going to take a tiny step back in terms of numbers. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Joe, thank you so much. We are looking to catalog and sell roughly 30 to 35 of our broodmares and fillies that are coming off the racetrack to be broodmare prospects. It's a very strategic plan. We've been thinking about it for a number of months right now, and just with the way the market is playing, which is at an all-time high, and with the bill coming through that accentuates the benefits of buying breeding stock, we opted to put, like I said, about 3 dozen of our horses into the upcoming Keeneland November sale with sponsor TaylorMade. And basically, it's a one-time offering. It's very strategic and deliberate. It's not something we plan on doing, very often. But we just feel like that from a business perspective, there's no better time than to capitalize on the market and the way that the bill is strategically crafted to benefit, buying horses at the high end and being able to accelerate the depreciation and it's basically a great move for buyers, and it's a savvy tax play for them as well.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you about, Jon or Len talked a little bit about it last week. The results were just insane at the Fasig sale, like, the select sale and the New York bred sale. And just, from a West Point standpoint, our horses sold so quick. Our horses always sell quick, yeah, but especially this sale. Do you think that that's a reaction from the tax bill and the depreciation aspect?
No question. I think it's twofold. I think that right now, the way that the market is, that people have a lot of excess money, monies to go ahead and invest in secondary businesses for themselves that we used to called hobbies, but from a business, from a tax standpoint, you want to call them businesses, secondary businesses. So if you look at some of these luxury industries, whether it's boats or whether it's vacation homes or in our important industry, horses, those extraordinary assets are getting picked up very quickly and way above market. And that was just one of the reasons why we decided to go ahead and take advantage of kind of a perfect scenario of tax, economic, and quite frankly, from a numbers standpoint, we've never offered this before. It's a number of turnkey mares that basically you buy in November, and they're going to start popping out foals in January, February of next year. So it's kind of an immediate return on investment. And Joe, I don't want to bore everybody, but basically it's mares that are in foal to young stallions like Kentucky Derby winning Mage, Life is Good, Cogburn, Elite Power, your favorite and mine, Flightline, and some proven stallions as far as, Not This Time, Street Sense, Tis the Law, Vacoma, Medaglia d'Oro, Nyquist, Curlin, the list goes on. And then there's a couple of fillies also that we're taking off the racetrack, including Bison City winning Winterberry, who just won by 5 or 6 lengths the other day in the $250,000 stake race up in Canada. And she's going to be offered, as a racing prospect, as well as Ready to Jam, who we own in partnership with Gary Barber, just finished second in a stake race up in Canada again. So I think that, if you're looking for proven mares, check the box. If you're looking for mares that are in foal to young stallions, we have them. Proven stallions, we have them. And basically, TaylorMade is going to be selling all of them on 2 different days. On one day, designated day in book 2 with about half of those horses, and one designated day in book 3 for the other half of the horses. And I think with that critical mass, we're going to have a lot of interest. And, again, we're just hoping that that we give the market what it's starving for and what it's, crying out for, which is quality assets.
Well, and I'm curious, how you decide which horses to sell, because how many brood mares currently do you have?
We have almost 40 broodmares. So we're selling basically 2/3 of our group. And Joe, it's a lot of horses from the top. There's a couple of older horses, that we have, older mares like Tiffany Case, who's the mother of Nitrogen. Of Nitrogen. Thank you. And obviously I can't sell her. But really from number 2 through 25 really in our list is where we're going. And I think the market is going to genuinely appreciate and embrace these horses.
And then how, is this a one-time thing? Are you going to rebuild your broodmare band, or is this the level you want to be at going forward after this sale?
I think we're going to do this more often. It's one time for right now. We will rebuild because, as you know, we mostly race fillies. So we accumulate these kind of broodmare assets pretty quickly. But Joe, I don't want people to confuse this with being a dispersal, because it's not. I mean, we just spent $2 million buying yearlings, okay, at the summer sales, and we plan on buying a couple of upper echelon mares at the November sale. Maybe at the Night of the Stars at Fasig, for example, and just kind of continue to rebuild and reshuffle the deck for the broodmares. But I couldn't be more pleased with the opportunity. I'm going to be down there, and it's going to be an exciting time to be in the breeding business for sure.
So it's that time of year where you got a lot of really, really impressive 2-year-olds coming out of the woodwork, and it's honestly hard to choose what we're going to do for our Rail Talk citations, but there were 2 in particular this week that jumped out to us. So it's our brand new Rail Talk citation editions. John's going to do one, and then I'm going to do one. So I think this makes 4 and 5, John. So we're going to track these throughout the year and throughout next year and see how well we do. John, take it away. Who is your Rail Talk citation this week?
Well, Joe, so far out of the 3 previous ones, they still remain undefeated.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
because they haven't had enough time to run back yet.
Exactly. So the Rail Talk citation is showing its value.
Oh, wait, Ewing, right? Ewing ran back.
Ewing,
yeah.
that's right. Ewing did run back. So,
there we go.
Yes, there we go. But no, Joe, my Rail Talk citation for the past couple of weeks is Golden Tornado, the 2-year-old son of McKinsey, who was a $475,000 yearling purchase by Reeves Thoroughbred, and Gainesway, who was the breeder, stayed in for a piece of him. He just, in my estimation, just blew the field away on August 9th at Saratoga, running the right distance, went the 6 furlongs in 10-4 by opening lengths, and was just widening at the end. Ran an 86 buyer number and a 7, Joe, on the Thorough Manager. So congratulations, the Golden Tornado, our 4th Rail Talk citation.
Yeah, I mean, that was the way that they were betting the Tom Amos horse in that race. He thought it was a fait accompli, but he tracked that horse and ran away in the stretch. And how about the fact that that's our second McKinsey citation?
It really shows you something that he's we're not breaking any news here, but he is certainly one of the up and coming stallions in that beautiful roster down in Kentucky.
It's interesting, though, because I don't remember, maybe you guys are different, but I don't remember being at the sales and having like a ton of McKinseys on our short list. So I don't know whether they're keeping them, if they're homebreds, or they're more, aligned with the yearling sales. But yeah, I didn't think of him as like a breakout stallion, but it seems like he might be.
Yeah, we actually had a couple of them. Unfortunately, they all run like me. And we haven't picked the good ones, but God knows we're probably the only ones in the industry that haven't picked a good McKinsey, because they are running all over the place.
They really are. Don't worry, John. You got plenty of good horses. Don't start a GoFundMe for John and Len, because they can't pick any good horses.
A woe fund me. Just send me your sympathy. Is that okay?
Yeah, we're always open for that. It ends up just being a bunch of people yelling at us and calling us wusses. But anyway, next up,
and that's just Rapoli. That's just Mike.
Exactly. All right, next up, second Rail Talk citation for this week. I was pretty smitten with Deep Learning, who had a blowout win last Friday at Saratoga on the turf for Klaravich and Chad Brown. She's a daughter of Cairo Prince, and just absolutely blew away her competition, closed like a freight train despite switching leads back and forth in the stretch. She was a $27,000 Keeneland September RNA, who then became a $325,000 OBS April horse. And John, you said that you were the underbidder on this horse.
We were the underbidder on the horse, and she would have been like a $250,000 2-year-old purchase for Klaravich if we hadn't gotten in kind of a pissing match with him on this filly. But no, she passed all of the eye test, not only at the 2-year-old sale, standing, walking, breezing. But also now has graduated, and 2 turns, Joe, which is really difficult to do this time of year.
Yeah, and especially to win that powerfully, going 2 turns, I think, projects a lot for the future. She got an 84 buyer, which is big for a turf horse, this early on. I think Cairo Prince also, speaking of stallions, very, very underrated stallion. It's our buddies down at Airdrie, isn't it, John?
He is, and he's the kind of horse where you're not going to see those foals in book 1 or book 2 or really the summer sales necessarily. There were a couple of nice ones in the New York bred sale. We actually were the underbidders on another one that our aforementioned friend of the show, Mike Rapoli, actually bought for $140,000. But yeah, he is a value play stallion for sure. Cairo Prince, turf, dirt, synthetic, short, long. He is like a poor man's Not This Time, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. No, we got one at the Mid-Atlantic sale that for like a good price that we like a lot. But yeah, this was, I love horses like this that can show that turn of foot and still show that they're green enough that there's a lot of improvement coming forward. And I think that was describes the way that she ran in that race, and she was just absolutely dominant. So this week's Rail Talk citations, 2 of them, 2-bagger, Golden Tornado on the dirt and Deep Learning on the grass. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 101 of Rail Talk. We are into the next century of Rail Talk episodes. Shout out to the whole team. Hope you caught us. It's probably going to air on Wednesday afterward, but I hope you caught us at the Racetrack Chaplaincy Brunch, an excellent event that's well worth your time and money. The charity is. We'll put the website up on the bottom of the screen so you can donate, and we're so proud and thrilled to be able to do that. So I hope we did well. I hope you guys had fun. We're talking about this in the past tense, even though it's tomorrow. But yeah, we're super looking forward to that. Shout out to my co-pilot, Jon Green. Thank you to our producer, Patty Wolf, and our associate producers, Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson. Thank you for tuning in and all the support through now 101 episodes. We love you very much. We'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk.